As you guys know, I take a hard stance on Kizaru versus Luffy. I have a ton of videos on the channel. You can still watch if you haven't yet. I would probably go as far as to say I probably have the most comprehensive breakdown of the fight on YouTube. 30 minutes, every encounter, every little detail covered in that. Check that out. It was posted over a year ago, still valid to this day. Then I did update videos based on new information we got. Here's these two videos. Check all that out, as it all leads to today. As per usual, when the anime episodes come out, there's a whole group of the fan base that gets emboldened by these new anime scenes. Some who haven't read any of the manga, some who've forgotten what happened in the manga, and some who just like to push an agenda. And now the debate has started once again, who is stronger, Luffy or Kizaru? People are now citing anime as canon, anime fight scenes as reasons for why Luffy beats Kizaru, and now an animator who worked on the episode, Vincent, has come out and people are jumping on the bandwagon of these statements. He dropped a 25 tweet soliloquy of what his thought process was throughout this fight and basically explained that he believes Luffy isn't trying, and stating things like, at this point in the story, Luffy isn't really trying to beat Kizaru. He's just stalling him. He's dodging, teasing, keeping things light, only pulling out named attacks once Kizaru actually manages to land a hit. He literally, at several points of the fight, had Kizaru in his palm. Now let's analyze this real quick. In the manga, what happens when Luffy goes Gear 5, mind you, this was a pretty drastic change that took place. He grabbed Kizaru off guard. In the anime, they make it look like Kizaru sensed something coming, he was prepared for it, and he just stood there like an idiot and let Luffy grab him. When in reality, he was completely distracted, talking with Vegapunk, having the mental turmoil right in front of his face as he's going to kill Vegapunk right in that moment, or thinks he might have to, but of course he doesn't take the opportunity to just kill him right away. He instead waits, has some dialogue with him, and then Luffy grabs him. It's clear as day when Kizaru gets grabbed, he's caught by surprise as he looks over his shoulder. When he does grab him, Luffy then throws Kizaru to the ocean, where effectively, if he did not react in time, he would have drowned or been in danger of drowning, as he is a Logia Devil Fruit user. So as soon as he hits the water, his Devil Fruit's going to be nullified and he's going to be severely weakened and drowned to the bottom of the sea. And then Luffy was extremely surprised by the notion that Kizaru came back, especially so fast. And then Kizaru's clone started fighting Luffy, to which Luffy was tagged and then ran away, lined up a shot to try to hit him, all while Kizaru was choking out Usopp below Luffy, where Luffy had no idea Kizaru was even there. Kizaru didn't take that opportunity to strike down Luffy or to hit him with an off-guard attack. Instead, he was just getting the information about Vegapunk and was completely uninterested in actually fighting Luffy. He just had his clones doing the job. To which, if you guys didn't know, there's a small detail to which you can tell which ones are clones and which one's the real Kizaru. The clones don't have the word justice on their backs, so you can see that Kizaru, the main body, was never a part of this fight at any point. One of the clones that doesn't even scale to him tagged Luffy, and then Luffy got rid of the clones, where Kizaru was never part of said fight. Then Luffy desperately has to jump in front of Kizaru's laser to save the Vega tank. Then he tries barraging him with Gatlings, all whilst already being extremely tired, to the point where he says he reaches his limit when he has to uncork an amplified White Star gun off of Kizaru's laser momentum to finally land a hit on Kizaru, to which he cannot recover from unless he gets food. Which we haven't even got into who actually gives him said food. So where is Luffy stalling Kizaru here? Within the context in which he's framing it. Because his context for the word stalling is under the pretense that Luffy is stalling without actually trying to win. Like he's just messing around, like buying time, but he could win at any point, is essentially what he's saying. Like if he got serious and locked in. When he's stalling by definition in a sense of he's prolonging this scenario, but it's literally at the cost of all his energy with extreme desperation at the final seconds before disaster strikes. I'm confused here. From what it seems to me and what I've just laid out, it seems like Luffy was actively, extremely desperately trying to apprehend Kizaru, and stalling wasn't a cognitive decision to hold back and wasn't a choice he made. It was almost the necessity because that's all he could really do, as he could not land anything on Kizaru up until the final moments, up until burning through all his energy, up until getting the prime opportunity, up until all these openings opened up for him to be able to do so. If Luffy was just stalling for the fuck of it, there's no reason why he would reach his limit to a point we have never seen before when he drops out of Gear 5, goes mute, is completely paralyzed, durability goes into the negatives to where Frankie without Haki can damage him with a blunt force attack, to which he spits up blood. That is not that is not congruent with somebody that was just chilling in that fight, my guy. Mind you, Kizaru waited till the absolute last second to come back up from the throw, where he was clearly in a nonchalant body posture, arms folded, and he was not bothered by the situation, and dragged out every single thing all the way up to this point, including when he missed the Vega tank on purpose, when we know he has pinpoint accuracy to be able to shoot a key in Marineford. Let's hear from Afro Garo, who's extremely funny. He posted this TikTok. He had some words about this.
Luffy could have defeated Kizaru at any moment, but instead opted to not defeat him and instead just keep him busy. Now, I'm not going to give too much energy to this interpretation, since it only really makes sense if you believe that Luffy secretly wanted Vegapunk to die.
Now, the reason he would say something like that is because Luffy's goal here, as we all know, is to protect Vegapunk and leave the island successfully with Vegapunk. So, when he understands that even if they were to get to the ship, Kizaru, obviously he knows he can fly at this point, would just lay chase to them at sea. Kizaru is a threat in Luffy's eyes to Vegapunk. Luffy has limited time within Gear 5 based on the amount of energy he outputs. We already know he was closing in on his limit throughout this fight. Therefore, when he reaches a state like this, in which he can only recover when there's an abundance of food present, it only makes logical sense that he would be trying to get rid of the threat in Kizaru as quickly as possible to protect Vegapunk, because he himself only has a limited amount of time in said form unless outside resources are present. Secondary claim in that same tweet justifies this stalling because Luffy literally had Kizaru in the palm of his hand multiple times, which he ignores the fact that both of the encounters in which he got him in the palm of his hand were both off guard, so it's not as if Kizaru couldn't react to Luffy grabbing him. Luffy grabbed him in a disadvantageous state. Then Luffy arguably takes the most logical course of action to eliminate the threat as quick as possible by throwing him to the sea, to which he would effectively die on impact if he lands there. Then learns that Kizaru obviously can fly back, so the next time he grabs him, he does an actual attack to which he claps Kizaru and Saturn together to damage Kizaru first, and then throws him to the sea once more, but this time Kizaru lands on a ship. So you could argue that Luffy went for the kill shot on Kizaru 2 times via ring out if Kizaru was to touch water. Chansar then goes on to say that Kizaru is effectively outclassed by Luffy. In one of his deleted cuts, there was going to be a hand-to-hand encounter where Kizaru was going to slowly realize that Gear 5 Luffy isn't just another version of Gear 4. The interpretation I take from that is that this guy believes that Gear 5 is far above Kizaru, and Kizaru was going to come to that realization himself. And half measures aren't going to cut it, which would make him go from using his feet like he did against Gear 4 to using the sword. Chansar believes that Kizaru represents lazy justice, and he uses minimal effort at first, and he only gets serious when he pulls out the sword. The best example is Kizaru vs. Rayleigh. So now let's point out all the things wrong with that. For one, this guy doesn't even realize that Kizaru does not have lazy justice. He has unclear justice. Lazy justice was Kuzan's justice. That's damning in and of itself, that this guy really doesn't know what he's talking about. Then you have the situation where he thinks that the sword equates to Kizaru being serious, citing the Rayleigh example. When if you go to the Rayleigh fight, it's very clear, and I have a full breakdown of that fight as well, that Kizaru, who yes, is very lazy and yes, does want to do minimal things, came to the island so casually, pulls out the sword, right? And it's Rayleigh that is the one that wants to do more. It's Kizaru that's effectively stalling out Rayleigh because Kizaru has Sentomaru, all these pacifistas that are chasing down the Straw Hats, and Sentomaru at that time was massively above all the Straw Hats, including Luffy. He was well on his way to defeating all of them, and Rayleigh was saying he wishes he could help them. He wishes he could do more, and Kizaru just stayed in his way. There was no saving them until Kuma showed up and saved the day by sending them all away. We understand now that Kizaru has acceleration techniques that were never used against Rayleigh, clone techniques that could have went after the Straw Hats at any point while he was fighting Rayleigh in the main body, lasers that he can shoot out of his eyes, all these different things he did not use. So Kizaru was massively holding back in the Rayleigh fight and remained casual throughout it and was taunting Rayleigh over the fact that he could not protect the Straw Hats given the subordinates were extremely powerful. I go over all this in the Rayleigh Kizaru fight. So that ideology is already flawed. The sword does not represent Kizaru getting serious. The sword is just one of Kizaru's techniques, and there's no basis to say anything otherwise. And to make matters even worse, Kizaru himself never actually pulls out the sword himself to fight Luffy. Only the clones do. The main body of Kizaru himself only pulls out the sword at the end of the arc when he actually kills Vegapunk. Then the funny thing is, when Kizaru and Luffy actually have a head-on encounter after this that mostly happens off screen, but we see the gathering from Luffy, Kizaru doesn't have the sword out. So by your own logic, does that mean that Kizaru was more serious in your anime adaptation where he's fighting alongside the clones and you think he specifically pulls out his sword and then gets less serious when he's actually fighting Luffy in a head-on clash near the climax of that first encounter? I'd go as far as to say the most serious attack we've probably ever seen from Kizaru to date is the acceleration kick he used on Gear 4, given the fact that he actually speed boosted himself to take out Luffy. Chansard then goes on to say that Luffy was playing with Kizaru and effectively dodging everything, so Kizaru gets to a point where he figures out he's not going to win a head-on fight with Luffy. So he tries another approach, kind of like Luffy and Enel and Skypiea, where he attacks the environment to bypass Future Sight. In a deleted cut, one of Kizaru's clones sneaks behind Luffy while Luffy is still fending off the main one. Then comes the part where he grazes Luffy by bouncing a sword strike off the clouds instead of going straight at him. This is what he wanted to do. So in another deleted scene, he was going to have the clone that cut Luffy break away from the others, and I may be mistaken here, but it seems to me that he believes that the actual Kizaru is a part of said fight, as he goes on to say that Kizaru loses his cool, he can't land a hit on Luffy, Luffy keeps dodging him, when in reality in the manga, as soon as the clones arrive, they tag Luffy immediately, and Kizaru was already on the ground. There's no flying to location like the anime made it seem. Kizaru was already on the ground as Luffy's continuously fighting the clones, and Luffy had no idea this was transpiring, mind you. This clone that broke away was going to use a cloud to somehow amplify or ricochet his attack or hit him from a different angle to land a off guard on Luffy, because that's the only way it's possible in this guy's eyes for Kizaru to tag Gear 5, because he cannot conceive that Luffy would actually get tagged by Kizaru or Kizaru's clones that don't even scale to him. This guy wanted to completely change the scenes, but the point being is this guy has a clear agenda that he has within his mind. It's not necessarily like it's nefarious that he's pushing an agenda because he, wants to do Kizaru dirty or anything like that. He made Kizaru look very clean in the animation, and a lot of people enjoyed it. It's just the fact that that's because his subconscious believes these things that is going to be represented within his work. His belief and his interpretation of said fight does not supersede the actual portrayal of said fight in the manga, which is the only canon. So anything that happens in this episode or any of the episodes to come hold zero weight or credence in the scheme of how to power scale this fight. But it's Kizaru that is sabotaging his own mission, initially probably subconsciously, to where it inevitably gets to a point where he actively consciously starts sabotaging it, hoping that Luffy's the one that defeats him. And then after the fucking arc, you have Luffy feeling as if he failed despite this man literally trying to help him accomplish his goal. Now, the biggest point of contention here was the fact that Pewpiece posted that Vincent Chansard confirmed meeting Ichiro Oda himself, who said he enjoyed the Luffy Kizaru fight in the anime. And then here's Chansard's tweet about it, where he says he met Oda and Oda enjoyed the fight, and hearing his thoughts was comforting. Oda has been quoted stating the fact that he views manga and anime as completely separate things and does not want the anime staff to feel overstressed to make everything one-to-one. In his own SBS, he talks about the fact that he is a manga writer. He is not an anime producer. He does not actively work on the One Piece anime. He leaves that to the 7 different directors. Oda does not write these episodes. The anime is a promotional material for the manga. It does not mean it's canon. Anything that is added to the anime that is not in the manga is not canon. Anything that deviates from the manga is not canon. With that said, Oda is directly on set for the One Piece live action, yet that is not canon. He has more input on that and more involvement in that than anything he's ever done with the One Piece anime. You have scenes like Mihawk killing Don Krieg, cutting them down in a completely different scene than what's shown in the actual One Piece manga. That did not happen. We know Don Krieg's actually even alive in the One Piece manga. We know Mihawk and Garp didn't have an encounter in the One Piece manga. We know a lot of different things and discrepancies have taken place. And here is a great example of Oda's philosophy. In this note here, he specifically talks about people bringing up the fact that these things aren't one-to-one accurate, especially in the live action, but this was before the live action ever came out. So he's almost foreshadowing how people are going to react to it. This comes from a place of people saying things about the anime not being one-to-one, right? So it's the same philosophy where you already have the confirmation, you've used them as different things. He wants this to just get One Piece popularized. This was the one opportunity to make a One Piece live action. Same could be said for the anime when it was first being pitched to him, obviously. It's a huge deal to make your manga more popular, to promote it, right? So it's a scenario where he doesn't take it too seriously. He doesn't want them to take it too seriously. And at the end of the day, it's all about just putting the series as a whole out in a positive light while staying true to Luffy's character, most importantly, because Luffy is the main character. So as long as One Piece is embodied and there's nothing that wildly ruins the story from an overarching standpoint in terms of overall plot, he does not sweat the small details of it, right? He doesn't sweat the small details being absolutely concrete one-to-one to the manga. It does not mean that those things now retcon One Piece the manga, because One Piece the manga is the primary source. It is always the canon. Anything else is just an adaptation of what somebody else believes. It is not the actual series written by Ichiro Oda, and you can enjoy something in the same way I enjoyed the episode without saying that that is canon. Oda enjoying it does not mean that supersedes what he wrote, and he thinks that that is better than what he wrote and that he's changing what he believes, and then that is the real story. No, Oda's story is the canon. That's it. Period. Point blank. To add even more insult to injury here, Eric Turlato, one of BDA Law's friends, right? He has worked on the One Piece anime. He was an animator for specifically episode 1093. He then did an interview with BDA Law where he talked about this. He himself in this video, in this clip, you'll hear it yourself, says, do not take the anime as canon. We are just having fun. All of us that are working on the animation team want to make cool shit. We don't really care about the story context or power scaling. We just want to make cool shit and animate it and have fun. But you can take a listen here.
Anime onlys are gonna be like, what the hell is Pudding doing here? And as soon as I said it,
I'm seeing a lot of dialogue on Twitter about, is this canon? Is Cracker stronger than Gear 4 punches, but he can't kill Gene Bart with the bullet? Listen, I'll say this about anime being canon and not canon. Don't use it as canon and power scaling, okay? We're having fun here, all right? Relax.
Okay, we shouldn't use the anime as canon. It is.
I'm saying in general in the animation area,
space.
Everyone wants to do cool shit all the time, regardless of power scaling or story context. That's just how it goes. Okay, so don't take it too seriously, okay?
So you're saying always refer to the manga?
Yes, always refer to the manga. For anti-power scaling debates, always. Braga, I thought this was common knowledge, but...
It is not. It is not. It definitely isn't.
Going wild.
And this guy, he seems to have a pretty serious anti-Mihawk agenda on Twitter. So this guy's already going in there. So if he ever was to animate a Mihawk versus Shanks encounter, like, who knows in the future, he'd have a bias towards Shanks, right? So all these people are going to have biases, whatever the case. But it's a situation where this guy was an animator for one of the episodes, is explaining that in the creative process, it's not like he's directly contacting Oda and talking with Oda as he's making said scene. That's even what Chansard let us know. Oda had no involvement with the actual making or production of said scene. He only reacted to it after the fact and said he enjoyed it. In the same way that these guys say that they're trying to have fun and trying to make cool shit, Oda is one of us. He likes that kind of stuff. He's one of the goofiest guys around. He probably loved the animation. The animation was clean and thought it was fun. His series is bulletproof. The manga is the manga is the manga. It is always the primary source. Even the animators know this. So stop trying to use it as canon. It's never going to be canon, and it never was canon. More examples of this. One of the animators is on record saying he himself made corrections to a manga scene of Garp using Blue All Naokiji to try to convey that Garp was in anguish doing this to his student. That was his own addition. That wasn't from Oda. He added that. There's even other animators that say it's a literal rule of the production side that Haki of Kings must shine with golden aura when they use Conqueror's Haki, yet they gave Kuzan the same golden aura in his clash with Garp. Does Kuzan have Conqueror's Haki? I'd love it if he does, but it hasn't been confirmed anywhere within the series, so who knows what they're doing in this moment. And that's just the truth of it, guys. So tell your friends that want to use this to watch this video, watch my actual breakdown of the manga event. People need to understand that the manga is the only canon. Hope you guys enjoyed said video. Think the video needed to be made. I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know your thoughts. Peace.